Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm on. I hear you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
made it.
yeah, I know. And we had about a half hour of conversation where we were muted.
Oh, what? Oh,
Oh
Fuck.
shit.
I'm sorry.
what? And we were live muted?
Yeah,
Oh, great. On this thing or on there?
there.
Oh,
Well, it's because it hides.
what?
Don't look at me like I'm incompetent.
No, I'm just saying, like, oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know, because that was like really good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Obviously, it's
and
not
then,
recorded anywhere or anything.
well, it is, but it's immediately unlisted, and then I go and I grab it. So I'm gonna have like half an hour of like silence to cut out.
The sounds that we produced was whatever recorded. We didn't record our dialogue anywhere else.
No, unfortunately not, which is unfortunate. Which is funny because I'm just like, I should set up like a backup source at some point to do that, and we are going to eventually do that. We'll move over to Wirecast soon-ish, but there's usually so many problems with bringing in external sources,
Mm-hmm.
and that like it'll take 45 minutes just to get us good, because that's how Wirecast works.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, can you try talking?
I am here and I am testing.
All right. Well, you're live also, and we're
Excellent.
unmuted.
Excellent. Excellent.
You know, if you hadn't shown up, we would have been muted the entire time. I never would have known.
Good. Good. So it worked out.
We were going to be muted. Good.
Well, I guess we can go back over some of the stuff we were talking
We
about.
can.
So we got content.
We talked about so much. Oh yeah, a trailer.
I'm psyched about it.
Yeah, it was just like this shooting schedule and everything. But I think it was well. Okay, so we talked about casting, what casting's like for you, and how the character becomes.
I think we should talk about casting again.
Sure.
Because that was interesting.
Yeah, totally.
I'm so sad.
About the muting thing.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and then we talked about sort of generating money and stuff like that.
See, that part I'm okay with not being in there because that's a subject I'm kind of. It's dicey,
Yeah.
as you're saying. It's.
Let's see. Google Hangouts. Oh, there. Oh, nice. Well, what about Alex? Or why don't you guys talk for a bit? Bring him into it.
Yeah. So, what's been new with you?
Nothing much. Working, a lot of work. I think I've told you guys I do social work, so I've been working in the field of social work, mostly with autistic clients, adult and students, so fairly young, and just had a lot of work lately in that field. The latest, that's the latest with my life. It's just been busy in that department. I know non-acting and unfortunately you can't put your life on hold. Some people do for the love of the art. I hate to say I don't have that level of willpower uh, to only do acting and really forego other opportunities. But I'm pretty sure everybody here works in some capacity. So, I mean, we'd all just love to be doing full-time film and television, right? But it's just not the way of the world, and so that's been my life lately. For those who don't know, I'm a avid video gamer, so yeah, been playing a lot as per usual.
Are
You getting that?
Are you,
Sorry.
I can hear it from your phone. Sorry, I'm just trying to get. Were you able to connect or?
Not really, no. Maybe they
Okay.
call me or something.
Yeah, hang on. Sorry, just do 1 second. Sorry, is it okay? Yeah. So, well, as we were having that conversation earlier too about work, and yeah, like as I was saying before, when we were muted,
Yeah.
that like my job is, I'm lucky in that my job affords me sort of the opportunity to work on my things while I'm there. It's, I mean,
Absolutely.
but like on the other hand too, like when I'm at work, I would rather be working and doing that job just because. Yeah, like I don't know. It's just weird for me to be at work and working my other job being, the show or whatever project I'm happening working on at the time. So for me, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a bittersweet kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. Are you, Sean? Are you?
Maybe my Gmail address.
Oh, it was the wrong address.
SHONEMILE.com.
Okay. There you, there you are. Okay. And in a moment, Sean should be able to hear you, Alex. Just make sure that you mute your microphone.
Mute my microphone.
Not you.
Okay.
Sorry, not you, Sean.
Okay. Oh, that's Alex talking.
Got him.
There you go. But you, thank you.
Very creative picture.
Thanks.
Hey, Alex, have you been on one of these before?
I can't say I recall. I mean, I think it's possible that you and I did use this, I think, when we had chatted doing that live stream where we did the question and answer period.
Yeah, it's yeah, we did the AMA through that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty effective. Even right now, I think like it's pretty cool because everything is clear. I don't know how you guys can hear me with my my headpiece, but everyone's really clear, so it's nice.
Yeah, no, everything's good there. I was just curious if you had ever done one of these live streams before, and you haven't, so
Yep.
Not our monthly one at least.
I think the most actors we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 in a shot. Not Lisa, Emma and Sarah and Michael and myself one time.
Lisa was hopefully that she was hoping to be able to make it, but then she had to work something she didn't think she had to work. So it looks like we have a pretty good turnout for our Wednesday one. So also on Wednesday, January 31st, so in Canada land, one of our telecommunication companies, Bell, has this thing called Let's Talk Day, where if you text or call or like you tweet, use their hashtag or something, they donate a certain amount for every time it's used to mental health initiatives in Canada. So given the content of our show, we're going to do for that day, we're going to do a live stream just to chat and sort of promote the mental health kind of thing. So it'll be interesting. But it looks like we have a pretty good turnout for that.
We're going to run with the theme of mental health.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to chat about it. And I mean, there's certainly a lot to talk about, especially like if you want to talk about the show or things like that. Or
Well, on a gray day like it is today, mental health wise,
those people who have the SADs.
reminds of Seattle.
Seattle.
Rainy, gray, sort of depressing, suicide capital of the country.
I was thinking more like Vancouver. It reminds me a bit of. It feels like a Vancouver winter out there right now.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Rainy, warm-ish. I was outside earlier. I'm like, it's too bad that I have like video call earlier in the day, a live stream, and another video call later.
As opposed to going outside?
Yeah, as opposed to going outside and I don't know. Probably going outside just to go inside and go see a movie or something.
Well, yesterday and the day before, I hope you got out at least a little bit.
I did. Why?
It was beautiful.
Yes, it was. Yesterday was Friday. I worked yesterday. So I had to go outside to go to work and then go outside to go home.
Did you go outside, Alex?
Trying to think. I don't think I did spend much outdoor time. No.
The question wasn't, did you spend a lot of time outside? It was, did you get outside?
At all, yeah.
Well, then in that case, the answer would be yes. Yes, I did.
Very good.
And I enjoyed it. And
So-
you know, while we're on the subject, you know, I think it's really great that Bell is doing an event like that, because I think it's just important in this day and age. You know, in 2018, I mean, we've had the knowledge for a long time with regards to all the varieties of mental health issues that people can have. But I don't think people are knowledgeable enough still in this day and age about those things unless they've had personal experience or people they know who have had trouble with mental health. And so I think it is really great that that Bell's doing something like that, and that we can be a part of, you know, really letting people know who do know and who don't know that it is something that affects people's daily lives, and it's not just about people affected; it's their families as well and people who are close to them. So it's really important, I think, to spread the knowledge about that. And I think Bell's doing a great thing. And in fact, you know, I really think it should be even more widespread than that, where everybody talks about it and understands the way it works, because I think it's an issue that people sort of, you know, hide and don't feel comfortable talking about. So yeah, I just wanted to make that comment about the event.
No, and I totally agree. You know, we're slowly talking about this kind of stuff more and more and trying to end the stigma of mental illness. You know, there's more to it. And like when people use the words like, oh, someone is crazy, that's like too broad of a term. I have my feelings about that, because it's just like, well, what exactly constitutes crazy then? Like,
Right.
Sure.
Right. Well, I think that is really, I mean, dated if anyone uses that kind of language these days, because, you know, I think in this day and age, there's no excuse not to know about the severity of mental health and how it affects people. So, yeah, I just think that kind of terminology, you know, for anybody who still genuinely uses that word, I think it's just so dated. It's just so dated now.
Well, and there's even worse than that, of course. Like retard in the 70s, it was a normal term, but today, actually,
even in the 90s, it was a fairly common term still too.
Derogatory for sure.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 70s, potentially that didn't even have the derogatory, I don't think, connotation. It was just literally that's what they are, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And that actually makes me think of political correctness, and the issue I have with the argument against political correctness, thinking that it shuts you down and doesn't allow you to speak freedom of expression. Whereas no, because what politically correctness is simply respect for others and how they like to be described or termed. So it's not that you can't speak. It's just that it would be nice if you took other people into consideration when you did.
Right. And I think on that subject, there's a line that unfortunately it's awful. So there is exactly that, the whole taking people's feelings into account. But then there's people who are so sensitive that you can't say anything negative at all, ever. You know, no matter how careful you are, because you'll hurt their feelings. Where it's like, what it is, it's a differing of opinion. That's okay, as long as you're respectful about it. But again, there are people who take that too far, and so that's why suddenly you have this whole political correctness is a bad thing, because there are people who are idiots. I think, yeah. Okay, let's not use that word, because that just kind of shuts down the conversation. There are people who are overly sensitive for various reasons.
Well, that's what you meant by idiots.
Well, that's why I rephrased, because if I say that just shuts down the conversation.
It was too broad a term.
Yes, It was kind of like the word crazy.
Yeah.
I was crazy to use the word idiots. Yeah.
We're all susceptible. And you need to go slow in talking about these things because they're not necessarily easy to talk about.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it, though.
No, absolutely not. Just respect. And yeah, offending people isn't necessarily the end of the world, but just doing it in a respectful fashion.
It's also about perspective, too. So something like you and I might have a conversation that I wouldn't necessarily be able to have with other people just because they're too sensitive, I guess. Because some people you just can't have conversations without them getting angry. But if you can have a rational discourse with someone, and keep things, even if I don't agree with someone, I can still learn something from them.
And express to them that you don't agree.
And then why? And I think if you don't agree, it's important to be able to back that up. It's just like present me with some evidence as to why you don't agree with me. Maybe, it's like I'll learn something. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, totally.
Alex, are you okay with being wrong?
Yeah. I mean, it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody. It's but the question is, how you deal with it. And I think, it's like one of those things that everybody sort of hears or learns as a child, but there's so many adults who never really practice it, and it's sort of like being a graceful loser or a good sportsman. But unfortunately, even though we all learn those lessons when we're young, I think there's a lot of people that just don't carry it over into adulthood.
And I guess the more interesting question to that is why is that the case?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing to explore. What happened between like childhood and now that kind of made that person the way they are? It's the same thing when you look at people who are, let's take a look at people who are homophobic. Let's say we're inherently good. Growing up, hate is taught. So, if you have that sort of intolerance somewhere, it was taught. Same thing with, if you're not graceful at losing, somewhere you learned that behavior.
Right.
Whether it be because you had a really bad experience and you put up walls and now you're really defensive about things, or, maybe it was just something that was just sort of beaten into you that you always have to be right, whether it be verbally or physically in some cases.
Well, and it doesn't have to be laid out and taught word for word, but rather by example, for example.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, whereas like if you grow up with, you have parents or siblings or whoever who you look up to who don't react well when they lose, you learn that behavior and suddenly that's okay. That's become normalized for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we definitely have to, in ourselves and in others, to some degree, perhaps mostly in ourselves, have an eye for and aim to keep a continual evolution and development of ourselves. I try to keep an eye out in myself, for example, for some of the things that I have evaluated as being on the negative side in my own family, and that could have very easily filtered down into me, and that have, but that can I spin them and use them to a positive end, as opposed to what I see as having been negative in previous members of my family.
So essentially, how can you learn from that?
Learn from it exactly, and better apply it going forward.
That's a good point, Sean. I mean, I know it's vague, but I think it applies to everybody in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree.
What did my mom and dad leave down to me on so many levels? And how do I want to use that or negotiate it.
How can you turn that thing into something sort of on a positive side?
Mm.
Yeah, it was the same sort of thing with me growing up. There were certain things, especially like looking at money, for instance. That's for me now. It's something that I don't really care as much about. So in some way, I might have taken that one extreme. I might have taken that one, look at like money's really been really important, and flipped it around to like now I'm looking at it from the other extreme. And that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's I'd rather focus on other things as opposed to that.
Well, and are you making a connection with your parents there?
No.
Nothing is received?
Oh, there's been things that,
Like, I mean, within that context of money question.
like actual money, or as in...
Well, your perspective on money that you were just describing.
Yeah. So there is that connection, but it's been flipped. So as opposed to it being a focus, it's a non-focus. Which is, it's weird. So instead of it being important, it's not as important.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe see it more as a betterment towards the people who I care about.
And that's a different way than, say, you received. Like, you originally saw it as important because you had received that perhaps from parents or whatever influences, but now you've been like, you know what, I want to think twice about that and do it in my own way.
That's exactly it, right? So it's just like so it's just taking that sort of something that I perceive as negative now and turning it to something positive.
Mm-hmm.
Just something that is useful. So I mean, it still definitely shaped me, but then I just sort of reshaped it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. For me, it's sort of watching out too, like males in my family, not all, but there is a phenomenon of talking about what one will do tomorrow and how amazing it will be, and convincing everyone that it's going to be incredible with some charisma and some energy and everything. And then tomorrow you're still talking about what you're going to do tomorrow. Nothing that it doesn't ever realize, it's dream.
It's like that on my dad's side.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's just like this constant talk of, I'm going to do this thing, going to do this thing, going to do this thing. It's going to be amazing. It's like, well, why aren't you going to do it?
Right. So I've always taken that as a critical goal for me. Even if it's not the ultimate goal, it's something real that I've accomplished and have under my belt and can move on from.
Yeah. And then you've actually gone out and you've done a thing as opposed to just talking about it.
That's what I'm saying. Even if it's not the full goal. Yeah. And the funny thing is, all those little things are essential to the ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm. It just builds up.
They're steps on the path,
For sure. Alex, how about you? You're so quiet.
Yep. No, I mean, I was just taking it all in. Can we...
Sure.
Well, sorry, I mean, I had just muted for a second just to exchange a few words, but...
Okay.
So specifically, hang on, because there was something you mentioned that was interesting for me about not following through or changing sort of, maybe not changing ideas, but something not coming to fruition. And I would say about that, one doesn't always have as much control over their life as I think one would like or one would expect. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I think a lot of great ideas sort of never make it into practical application for several reasons, you know what I mean? So that was really interesting. But
that's a factor to play with, of course, but not an excuse, right?
No, I was going to say,
you're right. Not an excuse. Not an excuse, yeah.
When you're talking about not having as much control over your life as you want, I mean, can you elaborate on that? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I've grown up, I think I've realized that some people are. Um, I don't really look at it as like as an upper hand or underdog or that kind of viewpoint. It's just sort of like some people may get dealt certain characteristics. For example, there are some people that can't do public speaking or acting. You know what I mean? It terrifies them. It's something built into them. They didn't have a choice over that. So that really limits their ability to say, want to become an actor or do something like that. Let's just say. That's just like that's sort of a really simplified example of something that one doesn't have control over. You know what I mean? Like your own characteristics that might limit you in your ability to do a certain thing. You know, but more elaborately, you know, it's hard to say. I think there are a lot of circumstances. You know, let's just say, you know, if you grow up in a certain environment, if you've worked a certain job, you know, there's plenty of people that work certain jobs for 10, 20 years, and they'll tell you that they've gone too far. This idea that they built up so much experience and so much knowledge in one industry. And it doesn't mean they can't do something else. It doesn't mean they can't turn their life around entirely. But they might feel like it's they're forced or they're guided into a certain direction that maybe they did or didn't plan for, but it ended up that way. And I just saw, you know, possibly influencing this thought is just last night I went to a theater production in Aurora, the Theater Aurora.
Wait, was it called If Then?
If Then, that's right.
Oh, geez, I know the director and everyone involved. Yeah.
So as you said Aurora, I'm just like looking at
yeah, Theater Aurora. Yeah. So If Then, boy, that play really it makes you think. It makes you contemplate. You know, what kind of control we really do have in our lives, and whether things just happen the way they happen. But I think the message, though, ultimately, you know, of course, that kind of artwork is, you know, for people to interpret and for people to think about. It's not for, you know, necessarily a solid conclusion, but certainly they steer you toward concluding with the idea that one shouldn't dwell too much on their life circumstances or why things happen the way they did. They just kind of happen. And I think that's true for a lot of people, that things just sort of happen, and you don't always, you know, not that you don't make conscious decisions, but sometimes, you know, it's like the old, when life gives you lemons, you make, you know, lemon juice kind of, or you make lemonade. And yeah, so I'm just, it definitely influenced.
How many people were in the audience last night?
Yeah, well, I was. What's that?
I hope it's doing well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was actually volunteering. I was working concession, but I did sneak in to see the show, and it did seem really busy. It's only the second night, and it is running next weekend as well. So
Nice.
yeah. So you know Sergio then?
That's right.
Yeah,
I've done
Sergio's.
with him and...
Yeah, he's done quite a few productions, Sergio.
Yeah, I feel like he could do stuff in the city. People are often telling him, like, bring this play to the city or, you know, to bigger audiences. But he keeps plugging away in Aurora.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Aurora is small time. It is a close-knit community there, and they're very accommodating in terms of scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that really attracts people there. You know, they're very accommodating. Just everybody just understands that everybody's working, and he is actually a paramedic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So being a paramedic, you can only imagine the kind of work hours, the unpredictable aspect of it. So shifts work, you know, not necessarily unpredictable, but you know what I mean. Rotating shifts, difficulty to make some consistent plans week by week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah. What did you do with Sergio?
Oof, we're going back a ways. I mean, I think the first thing we did was Bye Bye Birdie in like 1997.
Wow.
There's been a number of things since then.
How old are you,
Yeah.
Sean?
Oh, how old am I? 35. I'm about a month away from being 36.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it feels weird.
That's kind of funny
Does
that you
it?
play someone who's, I think, the exact age is 26.
Okay. Actually, I applied yesterday for a film version of West Side Story, directed by none other than Mr. Steven Spielberg.
I hope you get the role.
Well, who knows? But the character's
Awesome.
18 to 23. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you can do this.
Yeah. You have someone who's playing Violet's sister, who's about 12, and the actress is 20.
Oh, that's hilarious. Nice.
But like, it's like she has the look for the part, and with our great makeup artist, who's, makeup and hair, and then some wardrobe, makeup, hair, between all that,
Acting.
she already looks younger, but like that'll get even more younger, or even younger, not more younger. It's not a real phrase.
May I? We were talking about, I think Alex referred to factors affecting your choices and your ambition and what you're able to accomplish day to day in a given industry. And I think that's provides a really positive segue to something that could not be more current, which is like, for example, females in a given industry, whether it be stand-up comedy, or I was just hearing that on CBC, or cinema, or anything, where we're far still from parity. And so it's about, on one hand, more opportunities and more, maybe, I think the audiences are there. It works when you have a film with a female lead, a female director, those work. So audiences are there, but it's one hand, the people who are hiring, and on the other hand, I guess, women having been trained and wanting to do it and receiving from their parents and from previous generations and from examples that they can. What do you think about that? I'm not really the best place to talk about it as a white male.
No, like I think the industry is taking an interesting turn. Actually, though, it's funny that you bring that up, because before one of the groups I'm on Facebook, they're offering a free VR 360 class for women. And then there's
Like
someone
how to make VR?
Yeah, how to use like the VR cameras and that sort of thing. So like training, and totally free. And someone had put like, why only female? Why not male? This goes back to another interesting post that someone had made, commenting like they were on a VR set and there's maybe one person that they know who does directing for VR, one female who does directing for VR, one female who knows how to use the camera, and that's it. It's mainly a male-dominated industry, part, and it's huge that way. So it's this whole thing to try to get more females trained with VR, directing, using the cameras. So things like that. But then you still have the people who are just like, well, why can't you be all inclusive and have us too? Like, well, have you seen the state of the industry? Like, I mean, even things with with the Golden Globes that just happened. Was that the Golden Globes? I think it was the Golden Globes. Oh no, it was the Canadian Screen Awards. That's what it was, and they have finally had a female cinematographer nominated.
Oh wow!
And I think that's the first time that's happened. So and that's sad that we have to make a big deal about that, because this shouldn't have been the first time this happened. So I don't know, I like the shift that's slowly happening.
Well, that's it. I mean, the fact that it's never happened and should have already isn't a reason to not do it now. and hopefully it becomes more and more regular.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, we should make a big deal of it because it is a big deal that it happened. But at the same time, like, it should have happened before. You know, so it should be a more commonplace thing. So hopefully we start, you know, that starts to keep, you know, we keep going in that direction. We're going in a good direction. Even with the whole Me Too movement as well. With with everyone, what's that?
It's huge, obviously.
Yeah, and like with everyone who's coming forward. I won't dive into that because I have mixed feelings about that.
Well, and it's funny too because my girlfriend works at a nuclear facility as a welder in the Boilermakers Union, and there's not that many females, and there's no question of her capacity. Whether she got in or not, a little bit easier because she was a female. Regardless, she's earned her way, and she wouldn't still be there if she wasn't good, regardless of her gender. That being said, they don't get a lot of females who try to get into that. And so that's an aspect too. Is like, yes, we want gender parity given in all domains, but there's a number of factors that might slow that down yet for a while.
And that actually gives us a really good point. The fact that not a lot of females have tried to get in, you know, you have to wonder then, would the numbers be higher if more women who are of higher quality applied? Like people who, if more women who deserve to be there applied. And I mean, I'm going to switch gears from sort of, but looking at, we talk about inclusivity, but it's also a matter of who applies. So let's, like casting for Scars, for instance. One of the characters is trans. I would have loved to have had a trans actor play, or someone who's non-binary or something play Kyle. But it came down to who applied and who was the best for the job. So even if we had some trans people who applied and Michael had still outshined them, he would have gotten the part. So it comes down to, you know, when you're going to start talking about that, taking a look at all the factors. So, you know, if people aren't applying, then, you know, you can't use that as a proper, as a proper stat.
Well, I guess it's like a bigger social question of encouragement in high school, awareness, of seeing themselves in roles like that. I mean, their type of person or what have you, so that they can see it's possible. I can do that, and I can submit for jobs.
And the more, you know, the fact that now we have, you know, the whole big thing of like a female cinematographer getting nominated, that's good. That's positive. That will encourage more people to go, well, if that happened, then, you know, why can't I try this? And that just, it comes down to being socialized when you're younger. You know, everyone's being put into the role. So I'm curious as to see where the next 20, 30 years go, now that we have a new generation being socialized considerably differently than, say, you and I.
Yeah,
That's a good point, because it has changed a lot even in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say 20 years, it's made a big difference.
So, like, and I think that has a lot to do with it, too. It's just the current generation that's there. And so now we're suddenly, you know, wanting change. We're wanting to see things different. We're wanting to see, you know, things become more equal. So it's because of how we're raised and then how we're raising our kids and going forward. So yeah, so when you start thinking about it that way, it kind of feels like a natural progression that this is happening. It starts to feel a little bit more normal, I guess, natural.
Despite what might still be factors pushing in the opposite direction or what have you, which seems to necessarily exist, because we're still not there at all.
Yeah.
And I'm finding like I had a moment yesterday on CBC. Again, they were talking about gender parity, sexual harassment, but also particularly gender parity. And I'm like, we're still only at 20% women. And it's starting, like, even for me, who's full out open, I'm like, I'm having a really hard time finding a job.
Mhm.
Is that because I'm a white male or who the fuck knows? But we're only at 20%.
Yeah, that's still so low.
Yeah.
And then there's the wage gap too.
Sure.
And that, I think that's also another factor. Looking at the wage gap, if you're making less than a male who's doing your exact same job, what is your motivation to keep working doing with doing that job, that company or whoever? And what kind of message does that send about the quote, like, you're doing the same job, you're doing it just as well if not better, and you're not appreciated because you're making less than your male counterpart?
Mm-hmm. That reminds me, there's a British film about a time in the 60s. Women were or maybe it's even the World War, but women were working in like a factory, and it was talking about we got to pay these women the same, give them better jobs. I forget the exactly context, but the argument of the owners of like the GM factory and stuff was like, we won't be able to survive if we're forced to pay these women properly and get them jobs and bring women into the workforce. We'll go bankrupt. And I don't know if, I'm sure that argument, or at least that rationale, is yet present in certain CEOs and stuff like that. And it does necessitate a social shift where money moves differently. And that's got to happen. There's no stopping that.
Yeah.
So we'll look differently on the other side.
Just to make a point about that, there was quite a bit of talk around the minimum wage boost.
Sure.
Gonna bring that up.
And how that would hurt companies. You do also got to remember, let's just say a company like McDonald's, or let's just say Tim Hortons.
Like a local example.
There's a lot of franchise owners, and they get squeezed really by the corporations who are basically forcing them to use certain supply routes and buy from suppliers at certain prices. And it's sort of like it's sort of interesting. Who do you really blame in those sorts of scenarios? Because you do have a legitimate problem with a franchise owner who's really technically more of a small business owner versus a corporation who says, hey, don't do this, or maybe they say yes, maybe they say no. But the point I'm making is, there are some cases where I do believe it would be legitimate, but obviously it's absurd that we have our minimum wage even as low as it is. Personally, I believe it's very difficult to live on that kind of a wage. But so I'm not to get too political here, because I do obviously support the raising of the minimum wage, but there were some legitimate concerns about some small business owners and how they might be affected much more so than big corporations, and there is a gap there in perspective.
And I entirely agree that that's sort of where I'm torn on that. Having been a small business owner, it's difficult. Like, it would have been great to hire other employees, but it just comes down to, like, in this industry in particular, doing like commercial productions, whatnot, people just don't want to pay. But just going back to the whole minimum wage thing, yeah, like, corporations definitely. And when it comes down to franchise owners, like, I see your point, but that comes down to the corporation's responsibility to support their franchise owners, as opposed to just sort of being like, well, you're on your own. You can't do these things, by the way, but good luck with that.
That's an excellent point. That's
a very good point. For something like small business owners, I have to wonder if, like, so when your business files taxes, maybe if you get something like, if you're making under a certain amount, maybe the government steps in and gives you a subsidy. It does happen with some wage workers where if you hire, from a certain group, I think it's like anyone who's on welfare, on what is it called now in Ontario? I don't
Social aid?
Social aid, I think it's called. Anyone who's on that, like if you hire them, the government will subsidize their wage by so much. So something like that for small business owners to go, well, instead of laying off employees, here's more incentive to hire them. We'll give you a break on that, and we'll help pay some of their wages. And maybe like if you're making over a certain amount, like say a corporation, a little bit more as far as taxes go. So it becomes a matter of like the people who are making a lot of money help out the people who aren't making as much to sort of equalize things a little bit more. And then everyone benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be a good possibility to work with, absolutely. And I had noticed that point as well, as these saying they're a small business owner, but really they're a representative, which is what a fund franchise is, of a bigger corporation. And it is interesting that the corporation can receive from the franchise, obviously, but doesn't have to help them pay employees and stuff like that. So there's maybe a loop there.
Yeah, and it just comes down to just support it. It comes down to support. A franchise. If you're a franchisee, you pay a franchise fee, and that it's up to your franchise to sort of make that money. But again, you're still a part of that bigger company.
Yeah.
So with an increase in wage, like even the minimum wage increase, you still can't live off of that, especially here in Toronto.
Exactly.
And even what they're going to increase it to next year, I forget how much they're upping it again, but like you still can't live off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I don't know if you guys follow financial markets at all, but one of the biggest discussions in financial markets presently is the fact that wage growth hasn't happened for about 10 years. It's been extremely minuscule. So, they talk about the cost of living, right? So in the last 10 years, the cost of things has gone up quite a bit, but our wages haven't changed. So I would say that there are a lot of systemic issues also that have little to do with the minimum wage, because there's plenty of people that make, let's say more than $14 an hour, but not much more. And those people aren't helped by this, right? It's still just getting by. And frankly, if you're only making anywhere around $20 an hour, I mean, you're still just getting by. You can't really expect to own a home or live any kind of I don't know what the right word would be, but you really don't have any room for excess.
High quality of life.
Yeah. You don't have any room, and I don't even mean affluent. You don't have any room for extras, and that's unfortunate, because what kind of a way is that to live?
Including avocados. Because, we have to cut those out in order to afford a house. If we cut that out, we can afford to buy a house. So.
Luxury products.
Yeah.
Yeah, luxury products, sure. But I mean, then you got to think about what's a luxury product. Isn't it reasonable for someone to have a goal of owning a home in their lifetime, owning a home and having cars that aren't, super old and breaking down? Isn't it reasonable to expect that the average person should be able to afford those types of things? But I'll tell you, anywhere around Toronto, the average person can't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's definitely deeper problems than the minimum wage when it comes to what people are getting paid. But at least I believe it's a step in the right direction. And unfortunately, though, really wage growth comes from things that we talked about, corporations being responsible and sharing their wealth. Oh, that's a difficult subject. Yeah.
You heard about like guaranteed basic wage or what have you? They're doing it in Switzerland. Germany wants to do it.
See, that's the Ontario went and they tried doing a thing, and it was stupid. Switzerland and Germany, they did it. It's fantastic because everyone gets this base, and not just whereas here when they ran the pilot, I wasn't living in Ontario at the time, but it was like if you fell under a certain income bracket, that's when you got basic living, and it was like a replacement for Ontario Works, which is what that system's called. Thank you, Static Echo. But yeah, it's
That's sort of what Alex is talking about when you say what you just said. Ontario tried is trying to bring up the lowest, but not affecting the ones that aren't the lowest,
which
but
is
still having challenges.
which is what the minimum wage increase is doing. But like that doesn't help me with like just looking at that, like that doesn't help when I make it work, which I mean I can live, but I'm still kind of living paycheck to paycheck. So as you look around my apartment.
Well, if anyone could do that, it would be Canada. Yeah, I mean Switzerland and Canada.
Yeah, I mean we should be able to do it, and there isn't really a reason why we can't. I mean, even if you take a look at like our medical costs, yeah, we have this whole free healthcare thing, but I mean, you're still doing things like I have an ambulance bill that I paid for, like that I have to pay for. That when I'm not the one who called it. Like it was necessary, and yet I'm still being charged it. Ontario health insurance only covered so much. So it's like why? Like it's not really free healthcare. You're still paying for stuff. Dentists, you still have to pay for that. Drugs, you still have to pay for that, no matter how necessary. So we still have a lot of problems.
That's a really good point. That those sorts of gaps, I think, are things that people don't really realize or don't really think about. But that really puts a strain if you don't have any excess money, and there are tons of Canadians who don't have excess money. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's. Yeah, silence.
Should we steer towards a more happy ending?
I think we kind of should. So, Sean, update us on your chocolate milk.
Oh, well, yeah, the chocolate milk is done. Today I had dark chocolate. Decided to go upscale. I'm living on luxury products,
Speaking of luxury products, nice. Yeah, very nice segue. And because we were on mute before, as I was saying, last time we did this, you failed to update people and left anyone who listened wondering. You know how many emails I got about that?
Yeah.
None.
Oh.
But
I did finish it last time. It does not take me long to finish an entire chocolate milk. And that time, I think I had like a 2.5 liter or something like that.
That thing was huge. Whereas today, it was small.
Well, it's pretty darn rich today, so
all right.
I don't know how much you can take of that.
I still expected more from you. I'm disappointed.
Well, you haven't even started. This guy, this is milk chocolate covered nuts and raisins.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised you haven't started that. Saving it for home.
I didn't want to fill the radio with
as you took it right now. You don't care. Yeah, and you know what? It wouldn't have mattered if you did it during the first half hour because no one would have heard it.
No, you're right. Well, we would have missed that opportunity. So now we got it. It's a bit of a climax for today's show.
Yeah.
Alex, how about you? Are you drinking chocolate milk or vodka or eating?
You know what? No, but I am a chocolate eater, and my favorite convenience store chocolate is the Cadbury. So this would be the makers of fruit and nut bars, and it's the same line except they have all kinds of flavors now. I don't know if you've seen them. They're purple wrappers, and it's called the coconut and cashew. And keep an open mind. If you don't like chocolate and coconut, don't worry, don't fret. You still have to try it because it's just fantastic.
I love that stuff.
Top shelf chocolate bar, the coconut and cashew from Cadbury. It looks like the fruit and nut, but it's the coconut and cashew.
Do you remember the Bounty chocolate bar?
It still exists.
I'm pretty sure I had one in the last couple of months.
I haven't seen a Bounty chocolate bar in a while, but I haven't looked for it necessarily.
Oh, look for it. I've had in university when I had no limit on my chocolate eating. I would have like a chocolate bar a day. So I got my fair share of exploration when it came to chocolate bars. And yeah, once in a while I'd have a Bounty, and I had one not that long ago, I think.
Actually, that was my grandmother's favorite chocolate bar, and she just passed in the last few
Oh.
days.
Sorry to
Oh.
hear that.
Yeah, sorry to hear.
She had a very full, long life. It seems like everyone I tell about it is sadder than anyone among my family. I mean, obviously very sad, but at the same time celebratory. Like, she did a full life. She was ready to go. And she herself would be making jokes at her own funeral, I'm 100% sure.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's sad, but it's also like nice that she had that full life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you see on my Facebook and Instagram, I did a collage of images from her life because we have pictures from when she was 4
Wow.
in like 1926
Wow.
in
Wow.
Toronto. Yeah. It's a little bit of a history of Toronto because she was always
That's
in
cool.
Toronto.
That is cool.
And there's a telegram from Windsor when my grandfather was training for the military in 1941. He ended up in Scotland, and he sent her a little telegram warning her to be on the phone at a certain time in the evening because he was going to call. It's cool, you see a life, someone's life. I said, rest in peace, Grandma. You earned it.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, luckily it was not cancer. That's all too frequent. Things that are happening these days along those lines. Not to take it in that direction as we come to the end.
Yeah, maybe we should steer to something more positive. So about that death.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's positive in a way. In a way.
Yeah.
Well, next time we have a Bounty, we'll think about her.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's all she asks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel like we should have had Bounty chocolate bars. Just
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah, Sean, why did you prepare for this?
You by...
This podcast, this live stream is brought to you by Bounty Chocolate Bar. But yeah, so on Wednesday at 1 p.m. we are doing that Bell Let's Talk podcast or live stream. I don't know what we want to call it that. I mean, it's not really in conjunction. It's on the day of, but it's not really part of Bell.
Sweet.
But yeah, we'll call it our mental health live stream or something. But yeah.
I'm saying there'd be a fair amount of cast members there.
Yeah. Not necessarily all cast, but there is some crew as well.
Oh, cool.
Our social media person is going to be there. Assuming that people don't at the last minute go, I can't make it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I mean, it looks like it'll be a fairly good turnout. I don't know if it'll be our biggest. I mean, this one was initially set out to be our biggest, and then things happened, and now it's just 3 of us. One of whom took forever to get on.
Yes, I was on mute.
Shut up.
I was watching you from the sides.
I took so long because at your house and I was like looking through your window, but you didn't see me. That's why I took forever. Then I had to get home. But yeah, so we have that coming up on Wednesday, and then we're making a trailer.
Yes.
Exciting stuff.
I did cut my hair, by the way, so it has grown. It has grown back a fair bit, but you can expect a slightly more refined Richard.
All right. Well, I need to recast Richard now. Thank you for that. You never did trim that beard. I mean, we raised a bunch of money, and that beard should have just gone.
Oh my God! Please don't force me to do that.
Is that one of the
Should I?
perks?
Should
It-
I,
it was-
a full shave?
No, don't. It was one of our
Okay.
fake perks on the last video when we started coming up
That's
with
right. That's right.
things.
That's
You know,
right.
I mean, by that logic, Sarah should be bald.
Nice.
That was at like our $4 perk. Michael had set that at.
So,
Well, I am certainly willing to trim it right down. I could trim it right down to stubble. I'd be willing to do it.
It's quite all right. There's no requirement for that.
Before the trailer, probably not.
No.
Maybe post trailer, possible.
save that for the full-on series.
We'll save that for season
So
2.
you're
How
making
about
me
that?
reshoot things then, essentially what you're saying. Don't make me reshoot things. No, we'll end up reshooting it just because.
All right.
Alrighty, well I think that's going to wrap it up for us here. Come back again on Wednesday at 1 p.m.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sure.
Oh, alrighty. Thank you to all of our supporters, both from Kickstarter and Patreon. Giving a quick shout out to Kai, Andreas Nelsmuller, Milani Hernandez, Colin Weatherby, Primal Screams Media, John Freeman, Mark Grasdell, Heath Dobson. You guys are awesome and thank you for your support. If you'd like to contribute, our Kickstarter is over, but Patreon is always open and there are some neat rewards with that. The link is in the description.